Hey fellow brain pickers, how would you like to get featured as a guest on multiple podcast shows like this one and get massive exposure? GetFeatured.media will get you featured on targeted shows. They'll design a custom bio page, pitch you to the hosts, schedule a time, prepare you for the shows, and promote you so you get even more brand exposure. Head over to GetFeatured.media to get major publicity for your brand.
Welcome to the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast, where successful entrepreneurs get their brains picked so you can apply mindset tricks and game-changing tactics that will help you become unstoppable. Now, here's your host, Daniel Gefen.
Hi fellow brain pickers, and welcome to episode 60 of Can I Pick Your Brain? My guest today is just an ordinary guy who likes to play tennis with Sir Richard Branson, have a good laugh with Mike Tyson, and enjoy a good meal on Tony Robbins' private jet. But don't be fooled. This guy was at one point a serious risk to his own life. In fact, he was so depressed that he couldn't eat with a knife in case he used it on his own throat. He was also scared to walk in the street in case he threw himself in front of a car. Anil Gupta, who currently teaches on Richard Branson's Necker Island about the secret to happiness, is the perfect example of someone who didn't accept his situation and chose to focus on how to become happy no matter what. He has spoken at Harvard and been featured on Fox News amongst many other major media outlets. Anil is also the author of the transformational book, Immediate Happiness. And his mission is to help as many people as he can find immediate happiness. Anil, welcome to the show, and thanks for letting me pick your brain.
Hey, thanks for a wonderful intro, Daniel. I promise your listeners amazing content today.
Okay, great. I hope so, because otherwise you're fired. I'm just kidding. So, I wanted to say that just before we went live, we did a little video. I saw you on your Skype video, and I saw that you wear a T-shirt with a heart on it, and I actually noticed on your website all the pictures that you have with all the all the celebrities that you hang out with. You've got this heart. What's that all about?
Well, it just came as an accident. I was just talking about what I did for my life, and I thought what my mission is and what's me all about, and I'm all about love. And I said, what's a symbol for love? And I thought, it's obviously a heart. So I thought, then, what could I do with a heart? I could put it on my sleeve. I could put it on my chest. If I put it on my sleeve, no one would see it. If I put it on my chest, people would notice it. And I thought, you know what, let's just try that. So I got a shirt done, and it felt really good. And a beautiful thing is, this is the only shirt I wear 95% of the time. So that I don't have to worry about or think about, do my clothes match? If they don't match, I don't really care.
Do you wash it, though, or do you just wear the same one all day long, every day?
I've got to.
I was going to say, because that's, I don't know, you're married, right? You're married, I saw you with kids. I don't know if you're still...
Yeah, I've got 64 shirts. I've got...
64 shirts, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
because,
fine.
I don't have to worry about it. So they've got different designs on the back. I've been married 28 years. My son is 25 and my daughter is 23.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. How many? So you've got two children?
Correct, yes.
Wow, very nice. So I want to get, obviously my listeners probably, they're itching to find out, how does this guy play tennis with Richard Branson and get, to have a laugh with Mike Tyson and share a private jet with Tony Robbins? Those are I'm guessing the questions that my listeners, including myself, I'm curious to know how you went there. But before we get there, I kind of want to go back to your upbringing. What was it like growing up? And also take us through that period of your life where you lost everything and you got so depressed that you were suicidal.
So I was brought up in London, and I was brought up as a coconut. So Daniel, do you know what a coconut is?
In Thailand, they drink coconut juice?
So a coconut means I was brown on the outside and white on the inside. So at home, I was brought up as an Indian family, but when I went to school, all the kids were white. So there were only 3 brown kids and the rest were white. So I really didn't know where I stood. And that was a really big conflict for me because I really didn't know anyone that I could speak to. But, I handled that as we all do. Went to university, became an optometrist, and then I started going to an event which was run by Tony Robbins, and I thought, this is nice. I enjoyed this. And his content seemed to resonate very well with me. So I joined something called the Platinum Partnership, where you pay a ton of money and then you get to travel with him for a year. And that's how I got to be on that plane with him. I spent over an hour and a half picking his brain, asking him questions. And
can I just stop you there for just want to stop you there for a second. How much was the course? You said you had a year membership to Tony Robbins?
Yeah, I think it was $65,000.
Whoo! That's a chunk of change.
I tell you, I would pay $500,000 for that right now.
Really? So first of all, before we go any further, I just want to ask you, how did you afford to pay $65 million? A lot of people listening to this, a lot of people don't earn $65,000 a year to begin with at that age. I'm assuming you were, how old were you then?
I think 40.
Oh, so you already were successful in business at that point?
I was, but I didn't have the money, but I knew that it was something I wanted. So I borrowed the money.
You borrowed the money, okay.
Yeah, of a very good relative of mine. And it was a struggle, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And because of that, I started to earn even more money because I knew that I had to get it done. What happens in life is not what happens in life, it's who you become.
It's a very bold move, though, because to take $65,000 and put it down, it's a big risk. I mean, why did you make that decision? What prompted you to make that decision at that time in your life?
I felt there was something missing, and I didn't know what it was, and I wanted to get to a different level. I wanted to be a different person. I wanted my potential to come out, and I saw an opening, a guidance, a teacher that really resonated with me in so many different ways that I felt a total compulsion to do it.
And what would you say? I mean, you said you picked his brain for an hour and a half. What would be the three major things you took from that changed your life? I can't actually recall. I would just ask him questions. To be honest, I cannot recall. So let me ask you this instead. Let me ask you this. Being around Tony Robbins, I mean, being in close proximity to him, I mean, I've seen his stuff, and it's electrifying. He's got so much energy. What makes him so special? Because he's a special human being. What makes him special? What do you think, just being around him, what did you take from being close to him?
He has the most greatest ability to sense where people are, what's missing in their lives, why they're upset. He has a great insight into human behavior. He's obviously very energetic, and he's always seeking knowledge. But he understands human behavior like no other human being on the planet. His delivery is incredible. It's such a beautiful, thought out, empathetic delivery. He cares so much for people. I've seen him change millions of people's lives.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible. So after that, what was next? Like, what happened next after you were part of his platinum program? Then what happened?
Well, after that, my wife attended one of his events in Hilton Head here in the States. And then she came back and said, honey, we have to move. And I said, I'm not moving. Everything's set here. I'm in a great place. But at the end of the day, I realized that she was right. I was just scared. But I asked myself this one question: what's the right thing to do? My kids were 9 and 11. My son had just passed his 11 plus. And I realized that I really didn't want him to be an academic because there was so much pressure, especially on Indian kids, to succeed and be successful. And I thought, look, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And I asked myself, what's the right thing to do? And as soon as I asked that question, the answer came straight away.
That's a gutsy move to take your two kids at 9, 11, it's a tough age, and move completely different countries. It's that's a huge, bold move.
In retrospect, it seems that way, but when you do the right thing, a beautiful thing happens. Your vibrational energy changes. You become unstoppable, and you know that it has to be done. So there's no resistance. There's nothing to fight, because you know that that's the only way.
And I love that, because we've only been on the call for 9 minutes, and already you've told me two things that have, because when I come across someone like you, and the people listening, when they come across someone like you and they see that you're rubbing shoulders with Tony Robbins and Richard Branson and Mike Tyson and all the other celebrities, there's no different. I always ask myself, why is he different to me? What's he got that I don't have? Right? When I watch Tony Robbins on stage, I ask myself, why am I not on stage? And why is Tony Robbins not sitting in the audience listening to me? Right? Because when you start asking questions like that and you make bold moves, that's how you become successful. And with you see with just two things we just discussed, which is one, you put down $65,000 you didn't have. You borrowed it because you knew you needed to make a decision. You needed to make a change. Nothing was going to change without you doing something, and you did that. And then the second thing that you did, which was huge, is that you moved countries to get closer to him, because you knew, again, it would transform your life. But you took action. You didn't just sit there going, that would be a great idea.
Well, we didn't move countries to be near him. We just moved countries because we felt it was the right thing to do.
Okay.
And if I could share one thing, if your listeners just do this one thing, I promise them their life will change. And it's a quote from Steve Martin. This is what he said. He said, "Be so great that you cannot be ignored." That changed my life.
So how do you do that? I mean, right now, how are you doing that in your life right now? How are you being so great that you can't be ignored?
I'm on your podcast.
Good answer.
You emailed me first thing this morning. Hey, can you do a last minute show? I said, of course I can. I did a podcast at 10 o'clock this morning as well. So what it is just be your greatness. Stand up and don't be afraid. Just go out there. Be unstoppable. Be invincible. Be your greatness. Do your research. Be energetic. Get up earlier. And take the focus away from you and start serving other people. In the moment you serve other people, there is no pain.
Yeah, no, very, very true. And going back to your story, that point of where you were suicidal, how old were you then?
2008, I was 48.
So this is after you've been through Tony Robbins' program. This is after you've moved countries, which you thought was going to help. What happened? Can you lead us up to that point in 2000? I'm guessing already. I mean, everybody pretty much knows, right? 2008. Yeah, we know what happened, right? Yeah. I'm sure you lost a lot of money. So can you talk us through that? I mean, how much money did you lose?
Oh, it was millions of dollars.
Wow.
But the thing is, I knew what to do. But people think that knowledge is power, but it's not. I was frozen. I was in a bad state. I would drink cough syrup or any fluid to try and get me out of that state.
Gosh.
Just it was a terrible existence and experience. In the past, I've been through pain. I've lost money before, but I could always work my way out of it. But this time I thought, no, I can't. I'm 48. The real estate market's gone. I can't practice my profession. What else am I supposed to do? And I felt a failure. And I'll share a story with you. I thought, Anil, you're such a failure. Even if you tried to commit suicide, you'd mess that up too.
Oh, God, I'm sorry to laugh at that, but that's just...
It's funny, isn't it?
It's funny. It is funny. But did you attempt suicide at all? Were you just worried? You just were scared? I
didn't have the courage. I was a coward.
You're a coward to do it. Right. Well, thank God you were, right?
Yeah. Thank God too. Because, one of the thoughts that went through my head is, what would my dad think of me? How would it affect him? How would it affect my kids? In the moment I started thinking of other people, the pain disappeared. So whenever you're in pain, it's always focused on you. In the moment you serve, in the moment you give, the pain will disappear. And the more you give, the more joy you will bring to other people, and the more joy comes back to you.
Well, that's very interesting. So in other words, you're saying that people who are depressed or who are feeling down, feeling suicidal, are actually just being very self-absorbed and selfish in a way.
Well, it's not that they're self-absorbed. They're just focusing on themselves. In the moment they perform an act of kindness, they cannot be depressed as long as it's a true act of kindness in that they don't want anything in return. So that's what that experience helped me to get out of my funk, because I started helping people, and I realized, oh, this is good. I like the feeling of this. So I started doing more, and that got me from being unhappy to a happier place. And then the momentum builds, and then it becomes an addiction.
So how can you take us through that process? Because you're 48 years old, you've lost millions of dollars. You in your mind, there's no way out of this. How do you go from being so down to then suddenly having the idea to say, hey, why don't I go out and help people? How did that come about?
It was a transition. Tony Robbins did an intervention on me. His wife did one. His wife's brother did one. And then my wife did one. I was really very stubborn in those days. I still am, but in a nice way.
Right.
And then I said to my wife, honey, I've got something terrible to tell you. And she sort of knew that something was on. I said, look, I lost everything. I've lost all the money that we had and more. She said, oh, thank God. I said, what do you mean, thank God? She said, no, I thought it was something serious. I thought you had cancer.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
She said, look, I don't care about the money. As long as I'm with you, we'll sleep in the street if we have to.
Wow.
That's not what I was expecting. I was doing all this for her. And she said, look, I've never asked you for money.
It's amazing.
I've never wanted that. And that sort of woke me up. And, for the listeners out there, ask the people that love you the most and that you love the most, what is it you want from me? And you'll be surprised. It's not the money. They want you to be present. They want you to be happy. They want you to be full of joy and not stressed.
So then you went out. How did you help people? How did you go out to help other people?
So my wife asked me a question, and she said, what do you love to do? And I said, look, I love to coach. She said, why don't you do that? I said, okay. And I had another friend of mine, and he said, Anil, why don't you run some seminars? I've seen the impact you've had on me and my wife. Why don't you do an event? I said, look. He said, no, what's going on? I said, well, I'm scared. He said, what are you scared of? He said, look, what happens if no one turns up? And he said, look, if no one turns up, no one will know. I said, I could do that. So my first event was 6 people, then 10, 20, 50, 100, 200. And last year I spoke in front of 10,000 people.
Oh, my goodness.
That would never have happened. That would never have happened if I hadn't taken Steve Martin's advice.
That's incredible.
And Richard Branson's advice. He said, this is what Richard said to me. He said, always say yes and work it out afterwards.
I love that. That's amazing. Before we get to Richard, because obviously we all want to get to Richard here, but I want to go back to your first event, because you said you had 6 people show up. Now, obviously, fast forward, you said last year you spoke in front of 10,000, which is amazing, right? We all want to, well, I don't know about we all, but I'd love to get on stage, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting there listening here going, I don't want to get in front of 10,000 people. I would love to get in front of 10,000 people. But here's the thing. You got on stage, okay, and 6 people showed up. Now, to be honest with you, between you and me, Anil, I would prefer that nobody shows up than 6, because 6 means that now there's 6 people looking around going, oh, this guy's a loser. Look at this. There's only 6 of us here. Whereas if nobody showed up, I could just go home and it's like, okay, nobody knows, right? Like you said. What were you thinking when you showed up and only 6 people and, just showed up? What were you thinking?
No, I was, to be honest, I was gobsmacked. Because I thought 6 people paid to come and see me. They paid money. They took flights to come and see me.
Wow.
I was very humbled. But the interesting thing was I co-presented with someone, and I paid him to co-present with me because I didn't have the confidence to do the first event by myself. And in fact, I paid him to come to the second event. And after the second event, my wife, she's such a beautiful soul. She said, honey, why are you paying him to come to your event? They don't want to listen to him. They want to listen to you. They love the interventions that you do. I said, really? He said, yeah. And I thought that he was the one they wanted to listen to because he had a lot more structure. But I had no structure, but I did the one-to-one interventions, which caused transformation in people's lives.
That's incredible. It's really, really powerful. How did you end up meeting Richard Branson? Let's get to that. How did that happen?
I was just very fortunate to be in a certain place at a certain time, and I joined a mastermind group that allowed us to be able to go to his island for half a day.
Okay.
So we went on the island, and we had a picnic on the island, and he just came in on a little boat.
That's like then, Richard does, right?
Yeah, he just walked on casually. No one said anything to him, and I thought, that's Richard Branson. And my son said, yeah, that's him, Dad, that's him. And we were excited, but no one seemed to be excited. So he sat down, and I started talking with him, and then my son started talking to him, very casually. And my son recalled an experience on Virgin Atlantic where, can I share this experience with you?
Absolutely, for sure.
So Tony Robbins did an event in London, and he was flying back to New York. My son happened to be flying first class on the same plane as him. Mm-hmm. So my son called me. He said, Dad, you won't believe who's on the plane with me. And I said, well, it has to be Richard Branson. He said, no, Dad, it's Tony Robbins. I said, well, you work. Actually, my son works for Tony. He said, well, you work for him. So what's the big deal? He said, Dad, I'd love to sit next to him. I said, well, why don't you go and sit next to him? He said, well, there's someone sitting there. I said, look, ask him to move. He said, Dad, I can't do that. I said, look, this is what you need to do. Go up to the man, ask him if he'll move. If he doesn't move, give him your watch. But Dad, I love my watch. He said, it doesn't matter. It's a story you'll tell for the rest of your life.
Oh, wow.
So he went up to the man. He said, sir, would you mind if I sat here? I'm a big fan of this gentleman. And the guy looked at him. He didn't know what to do. He said, look, here's my watch. I'll swap you my watch for your seat. And the gentleman said, no, it's okay. If you help me move my stuff, I'll do it. So my son got to spend the whole flight with him coming back from London. So we shared that story with Richard, and Tony had sent my son an audio of that encounter. So we played that to Richard. So that's how we got connected.
That's so awesome. I love that story because, again, it just... And this is what's incredible, it's so powerful, is that your son is basically taking after his father, right? You're basically his role model. He looks up to you. He sees his dad taking these kind of actions where, you pay $65,000 that you can't afford because you know that you need to transform your life, and you risk it to do that. You move countries because you know it's going to be the right thing for you and your family, and you do it even though it's scary as hell, right? And then you go from being so depressed and so lifeless to suddenly going and putting yourself on a stage. It's like being naked. I mean, it really is. It's like really stripping down into your birthday suit in front of people because you've never done it before. You don't know what they're going to think. And yet you do it. You step on that stage. And now this story of your son is just like a perfect example of how, if you as a listener don't do it for you, do it for your children. If you don't do it for yourself, I mean, you should do it for yourself, but if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children. Do it as be an example, because this is incredible. How many people have had an opportunity to speak to a celebrity or somebody that they look up to, and they don't take that opportunity because they're scared? And there's your son on the plane, and he's got this opportunity to go and sit with Tony Robbins for the full length of a flight. And so many people would literally, I can imagine so many people just literally being in the same situation going, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could sit next to him? And that's it. All it is it's just a thought. But your son took action. He went there and he said, and you know what? He could have been turned down, but so what? At least he tried. But he did it and it worked. It's amazing.
It is. And the story doesn't stop there. So next year we went back to the same island. Again, we were there for the afternoon. Yeah. And my son approached Richard and said, Richard, I just stayed at your hotel in Chicago, and I noticed a few things. Would you like me to share them with you? Mm-hmm. And Richard said, just 1 minute. He got a pen and paper and started taking notes.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then he wrote something down and he handed something to my son. And my son said, what is this? He said, look, son, this is my personal email. Woo! You email me, I will personally invite you to the grand opening of the hotel.
Gee.
Okay. Sorry, the story doesn't stop there.
Wow.
So my son and I went to the grand opening of the hotel. We met all the dignitaries and we met Richard, and we took some video. But the night before, this lady started talking to me, and she kept on asking me all these questions. She saw my heart. And I said, whenever anyone asks me about anything, I'm delighted to share. And then she asked me, what are you doing? What time's your flight tomorrow? I thought, why are you asking me that? I said, well, it's at 12. She said, great. Would you like to be on my show? I said, of course I would. Taking Richard's example. And then I asked her, what show is it? She said, oh, it's Fox News.
Brilliant. Fox News.
Yeah. And then guess what happened? I lost my voice.
Oh, no.
I was up all night. I rang up my friend who's a voice coach. He guided me through. But that's what happens as human beings. We get scared. But I was not going to let this beat me. So, and the beautiful thing was I got to the show, and she just asked me random questions, which is really hard. And she could have asked me anything, but there was a live call. And from there, we went to breakfast at Richard's hotel. And the story doesn't stop there. So as Richard was coming to breakfast, I said, hey, Richard, here's you on the show. He said, hey guys, I'm really sorry, but I can't stop. Do you mind if I have breakfast and go to my meeting? I'm a little bit late. Can you see how polite this gentleman was? Do you mind if I have breakfast?
Amazing.
Then the story doesn't stop there. As he was leaving, he squeezed my son's shoulder. He didn't have to do that. And I said, son, this is a mark of a true champion, a true leader.
What do you think? I mean, spending time with Richard Branson, one of the things that I always notice about him is he always looks so happy, like genuinely happy, not just like he's putting it on. He genuinely looks like he's having a freaking great time, right? Do you think it's the money? Do you think it's because he's so wealthy, or do you think it's something else? And if so,
it's
what?
Not the money. It's not the money. I can absolutely guarantee it's not the money. I asked him, what are the most two important things in your life? And he said, relationships and health. He's surrounded by amazing people. Everyone there is out to have fun. He treats them with great dignity and humbleness and kindness. Like, I'll give you an example. I was playing tennis with him, and then we were at the tea station. I said, oh, Richard, would you like me to make you a cup of tea? He said, no, it would be my pleasure to make one for you.
Stop it.
What? Really? And we were on another beach, and I offered to take his plate away from him. He said, no, I'll take it.
It's so awesome. Wow.
Yeah, it's so easy for someone like him to be lazy. And we asked him another question. How do you prevent, all the temptations? You get people throw themselves at you, food, alcohol, and your listeners can listen to this, and it's life-changing. He said, before I leave the house, I say no. I say no to temptation.
Goodness me, that's
so powerful.
That's so powerful.
If you don't do that, and you're in that moment, and you have that moment of weakness, it's so easy to be tempted.
How did you end up getting to play tennis with him, though? That's pretty awesome. I mean, it's one thing to meet him on the island. I mean, that's huge in its own right. But playing a good game of tennis, I play tennis myself, so I'd love to have a good game of tennis with him. But how did you hook that up? You just asked him?
Again, it's just being there at the right time at the right place, and asking, hey, do you want to knock up?
Do you want to knock up?
And he did, and we played, and he would beat me 6-1, 6-0.
Oh, really? Then, he's good.
And then I said, look, you played really well. He said, well, Anil, you know what your problem is? I said, no. He said, well, you don't have any stamina. I thought, yeah, you're right. And he said, look, if you want to improve, you have to play singles. I said, well, I don't like playing singles. He says, well, then you won't improve your stamina. I said, you know what? I'm going to improve my stamina. So I started playing singles, and I came back and we played in a tournament, and I beat him.
No way.
Yeah, really, I beat him. And then I'll share the funny story. So he was going to hit me with his ball, so I bent over, and he hit the ball, hit my bum. And I thought, hey, Richard, that's the best shot you played all day. But he's so playful. He's so playful.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. And I also noticed that you had there's a video of you. I love this video, but for those of you listening, I'm gonna share the video in the show notes. So if you want to jump over there after this and go look at it, it's hilarious. But you spent some time with Mike Tyson on Necker Island, and you guys are like having such a laugh. I've never seen Mike Tyson in this kind of playful mood, and he was like pretending to bite your ear off. It's quite scary actually. But how did that come about as well with Mike?
Again, the secret to life is to give. So I met Mike earlier on, and I offered some advice about children, how to bring up children, how to guide children in a particular way. I spoke to his wife, and then she started asking me questions. And then later on, I happened to bump into them, and they said, "Hey, would you mind having a chat with us?" And I did. And that's how it happened. But the secret to living is giving. You have to give first. You can't expect people to give you anything. If you start giving, I promise you that's 1/3 of my happiness equation is to give. And if you give in order to just to give without wanting anything in return, amazing things will start happening.
No, but that's pretty crazy. I mean, to offer advice to Mike Tyson on how to raise his children, you're lucky he didn't punch you in the mouth, right? I mean, it's like, hey, Mike, can I teach you how to raise your kids? What you say? It's like, it's a bam. How did you approach that? I mean, I don't know. I feel like people listening to this are just going to be like, I'm sorry, how does this guy get in these positions? How do you suddenly just somehow meet people like this and then somehow get into such conversations with them? And do you know what I'm saying? Like, to you, you sound so like, by the way, right? And this is the thing as well. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're just an average. You're just your average guy. You're not an actor. You're not a famous basketball player. You're not a president or any kind of celebrity that would kind of, you'd expect them to hang out with celebrities, but you're just like an average coconut. Sorry, right? How come? How do you build relationships like that?
Well, again, you can't thrust yourself on people. So there was a certain situation, an opening, so to speak, where I said, "Hey, you know what? I have my opinion on this. Would you like to hear it?" And he could have said no, and I would have said, "Okay, that's fine." And there was no attachment. I wasn't trying to get into his life. It just happened to be the right thing. Even if it was you, I would have done the same thing. I was talking to someone earlier on today, and I just gave her some advice, and it was for free. I wasn't looking for anything in return. So the secret is to listen, to be wanting to give, have no attachment, and also you have to be in integrity and authenticity. So when you see me, you'll see that I'm fairly peaceful and kind and generous and loving. My vibrational energy will resonate well, so that you will want to come and spend time with me.
That's very interesting. Let me ask you this. You know, when you get into an elevator and there's like people in the elevator that you don't know, everybody kind of quickly switches their iPhone on and like starts scrolling through as if they've got something to look at, but nobody really has anything to look at. They just don't want to make eye contact. It's too awkward. What do you do when you get in an elevator? Shall
I tell you what I do?
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
You're kidding.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry I'm late for this meeting, but who would like to start? Really, that's what I do. That's what I do.
You are joking me. Come on. You really do that?
What's the worst that could happen?
I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those situations. People just don't do that. It's awkward. It's weird. It's like, I don't know. You're the weird guy. Oh my God, there's a weird guy in the elevator. I hope we don't get stuck, you know? What? Yeah. Can I ask you this? What happens? What kind of reactions do you get when you do that?
Well, people smile. And people start talking. They say, "Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I like that." Or,
and
really,
then you just
try it.
Right. Okay.
Homework for your viewers and listeners. Try it.
I was just going to say action step for those listeners, okay? Because you know what, this whole chat that Anil and I have had has been absolutely incredible so far. I mean, it's incredible and incredibly inspiring. But like I always say, inspiration and knowledge, like you said, Anil, are worthless if you don't actually do anything about it and put it into action. And everything that we've been talking about, you know, meeting Richard Branson and Tony Robbins and Mike Tyson, all these guys, all happened because you took action, right? So for those listening to this, I want you to practice this. I think the easiest way to practice is because, to be honest with you, to say to tell you to get on stage and just do a seminar, that's a bit too much for right now. But just for little homework, the next time you get into, and I'm going to do this myself because I hate this. This is really cringe. But next time you get into, seriously, next time you get into an elevator, I want you to say, what was it, Anil? Hey guys, what was it? Sorry,
you can say, hey guys, I'm sorry for being so late for this meeting. Or the other thing you can say is, hey guys, you're all wondering why I called you in for this meeting.
I love it, absolutely love it.
And the topic of this meeting is why people don't talk in elevators.
Oh, perfect. Brilliant. And I want you guys listening to do it, and then I want you to send me an email. I'm going to share it with Anil as well, because I'm sure Anil wants to hear some of these feedback. But I want to hear the reactions you get. So just shoot me an email, okay? My email, as you probably already know if you're listening to the show, is daniel@danielgefen.com. That's daniel@danielgefen.com. And just shoot me an email with your elevator experience. In fact, in the subject line, just so I know, put in elevator experience, and I'll definitely read all of them, and I'll share them, the best ones, with Anil, and maybe I'll do a separate show just to talk about that, because I think it's awesome. Now, and Anil, what other celebrities have you sort of had the pleasure of hanging out with?
Paul DeJurio, who owns Cafe Patron. He's got an amazing story. Beautiful soul. I met Adam Sandler in Malibu, Chuck Liddell at the Playboy Mansion. Who's that guy who went to the moon? Second guy. Buzz Aldrin.
Okay,
I met him. But I meet a lot of people that I don't even know who they are. I was in Toronto, and I was being taken backstage around the tennis courts, and they said, "Oh, don't mind him. It's Drake and his entourage." And I said, "Who's Drake?" I didn't know.
Who's Drake?
I got introduced to Pitbull once. I didn't know who he was.
Oh wow! You didn't know?
It doesn't bother me who they are. What interests me is how caring, loving, joyous and playful are they. That's what interests me.
That's so interesting. And what would you say is, I guess, the common denominator? I mean, all of these celebrities have obviously been successful in their own right. Like, what would you say is the some of the things that kind of rubbed off on you that you noticed they all had in common?
A desire, and none of these people became overnight successes. They did their homework. They were committed. They practiced, and they had a vision, and they knew what they wanted, and they were willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And people think that there's an overnight success. There's not. There's no such thing as an overnight success. You have to practice. You have to be ready, and that's the thing. You have to be ready. If I said to someone, "Hey, you've got the chance to go on Oprah tomorrow, would you take it?" I can guarantee 99.9% people say no. So you have to be ready, and you have to be ready to be ready.
Are you ready to go on Oprah?
I am indeed. You set me up. I can speak to her in the next 5 minutes. I'm ready. I have what it takes.
That's brilliant, really. And by the way, for those listening, and I'm sure, I don't know, my listeners, I think, should know by now, but this is completely unscripted. I don't have a script. I don't have a list of questions. A lot of podcast shows, the hosts send a list of questions to the guests, just to prepare them for the show. And with me, I don't believe in that, because I feel like it's so much more authentic and genuine when you just have a conversation. There's no script, there's no questions, nobody's prepared, and it is scary. It's scary as heck, because I don't know what I'm going to ask, and you as a guest don't know what I'm going to ask. So it's kind of just completely freestyle. And I know
it's scarier for you than it is for me.
Yeah, that's for sure, because I've been on both sides of the mic. I've been on podcast shows, and I can tell you it's much easier to be on the other side, because you're just responding. I mean, you're just sharing stuff but asking the questions, you kind of have to really guide it. So, but you know what? I know an awesome guest, because when a guest is just so comfortable with the conversation, those are the best guests. And you've been awesome on this, Anil. I mean, really, you're just a real massive inspiration to me, and I hope to the people listening. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is you wrote a new book called Immediate Happiness. So why should our listeners, when they finish listening to this, grab that book? Like what's in that book? Because there's so many books on happiness and peace and love. Like, why should they buy that book?
Well, when we were born, we were never given a manual. And this book is a manual. Why we sabotage our relationships, why we get upset, how human beings work, how do we step up, how do we get to a next level, what is it that we have to give up? And it talks about awareness. Awareness gives you clarity, clarity gives you focus, focus gives you action, action gives you results. And no one teaches us how to pick the perfect partner. We go on this dating facade, and it's always very painful. So it's practical. What I loved about this book is just it's totally practical. You can read one chapter and then you can implement from that one chapter.
Amazing. And where can they get a copy of that book?
Amazon. It's a bestseller on Amazon. It's available in Spanish and in English and American too.
An American too. Okay, well, that link, the Amazon link, will be in the show notes as well. I've got a question here from Facebook. One of my friends on Facebook. I mean, there's a lot of people that ask questions, but there's one that I felt that kind of really popped out, which I liked. He said to ask you. His name's David Ratchford, and he said, "How do you get under Sir Richard's skin? Can he take a beating? And after spending so much time with Richard, is the way he plays tennis the same as how he plays business?" I love that question.
He likes to win, but
right.
If he loses, he loses. It's not a big thing. But he's very competitive, and in the last 6 months, his level of fitness and tennis skills have improved a lot. He went on something called the Virgin Strive, where he had to walk, cycle, and swim a lot of Italy. So his fitness levels have improved drastically. But yeah, he likes to win, but he's not a sore loser. He's very playful about everything, and I think that's the way he does business. And I never speak business with him. The only thing I speak about with him is health and happiness. That's it. I'm not interested. I have nothing to pitch to him. I have nothing to sell to him. The only time I asked him to do anything was to wish my wife a happy birthday. And I'm not sure if you've seen that video. It's one of the funniest videos that he's ever done.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen it.
I'll share it with you. Yeah, I'll send it to you. But yeah, really, he's very casual. He carries a cell phone maybe for 10 minutes in the 9 times I've been there. And, there was something going on. He had to answer a phone. He likes to take notes. And one of the great things he does, he listens. Whenever anyone says something to him, he will listen. No matter what you say to him, he has the patience and humbleness to listen. And what I realize is that he's listening for the gold. He's listening for one golden nugget, one piece of advice or a sentence that can change people's lives. He's listening for that. And that's the secret. If you did that in your relationships, if you looked at your wife and your children and you listened for the beautiful things that they're saying, I'm sure your relationships would change.
That's incredible. And I tell you, the 3 things I think I've taken out of this conversation is there's 3 approaches here. What I find is what you've said is, number 1, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to take action. When you get in that elevator, you don't know who's in the elevator. You don't know what's going to come out of the relationship that you build from there. When you get in there, just go bold. Just ask. Just take action. If you see somebody who you look up to and you think to yourself, nah, he's too busy or she's too busy, they're never going to speak to me, shut up, go over there and say, hi, my name is that. I love your stuff, and just get into a conversation with them. That's number 1. Number 2 is playfulness. Richard Branson, if you look at how he is, if you look at him as a person, he's always being playful. You look at Tony Robbins, it's the same thing. He's playful. He just gets on stage and he enjoys it. Be playful. Do things that are different. Do things that are like, just don't take yourself so seriously. The thing I love about Anil is when I got on the Skype call with him, he's sitting there with this t-shirt with this goofy looking heart on his heart, which is, it's funny. It's a conversation starter. Don't take yourself so seriously. Yeah, people are going to think you're weird. Yes, they will. Who cares? You know, people are going to think you're weird when you do the elevator thing. They're going to think you're weird for the first second, but afterwards they're going to fall in love with you. You know why? Because you're real. And 99% of the world, they're not. And number 3, listen. Once you've got a conversation started, just listen to them. Because people are more interested in talking about themselves than hearing what you have to say. And I guarantee you that if you learn to listen to people, they'll fall in love with you. So those are the 3 things that I took from it. Anil, this has been absolutely incredible. What's the best way for my listeners to get in touch with you?
Well, if you go on my website, immediatehappiness.com, there's a way to contact me through that. Or you can just email me, Anil, A-N-I-L, at immediatehappiness.com. And if I could just share one thing, if you want to find out how happy you are, there is a happiness test. It's called myhappiness.score.com. And not only will you get your happiness score, but you'll get detailed breakdown in areas of your life that you need to work on.
Very cool. So that will be in the show notes, as well as all the videos that we mentioned, including the Richard Branson hilarious video that he sent to your wife for her birthday. So guys, I urge you to go on to the show notes. To get to the show notes, all you need to do is go to my website. It's danielgefen.com, and it's /60. So that's danielgefen.com /60, and the show notes will be there. Anil, this has been a truly happy experience for me, and hopefully my listeners will get the happiness, what was it, the happiness questionnaire, the test score. Thank you so much for letting me pick your brain today. Thank you to all my fellow brain pickers. I'm looking forward to the day when I'll be picking your brain.
You've been listening to the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast. Inspiration without perspiration is like a tiger without teeth. So, to put these ideas into action, head over to danielgefen.com.